we wanted to, from day one, to have an environment where kind of everyone has a voice, and not just has a voice, but is obligated to use it.
Welcome everyone to UpTech Report. This is our Founders Journey series. I'm excited to again be joined by Yotam Oren, who's based in Atlanta, Georgia, co-founder and CEO of Mona Labs. This is the second part of our interview. Definitely check out the first part. We hear a bit more about their product and how it provides production monitoring for AI. This series, though, this discussion, I'd love to hear a bit more about your story. How did you come to found Mona Labs and where you are today? Feel free to start before 2 years ago, like your whole story.
Come on, of course, yes. Well, so a few things to know about me, maybe. I'm I'm an Israeli who've been in the U.S. now 12 years, so I actually an Israeli American, a father of three, a software engineer by education who had come here originally in 2008 to get an MBA. Kind of move to learn about business from Americans, and it's worked quite well since then. And I spent my entire career in around big data. I was a data engineer, and was later in the data space as a business development guy. But I had a corporate career. I was I didn't think about entrepreneurship until later in life, and this is my first startup, and
Exciting journey.
Right, I came to it sober, and with a lot more experience than I would have had, say, if I went to start something straight out of college. My college roommate and I, who've been really good friends since college, have talked about doing something together for a long time. I mean, pretty much since we graduated. And we've had a lot of conversations like this over the years. But in 2018, when he called me, something was different. It just felt more right. I think part of it probably we were in a good place personally and felt ready to take a risk. But also the idea seemed so much bigger than anything we've ever talked about before.
The timing, everything was aligning. You knew you wanted to eventually do this, but it felt good at this point.
Oh, for sure. I mean, I knew I wanted to do this because I think it sounded really exciting. I love building things from scratch, and I wanted to, I love building teams. This is interesting because it's quite unrelated to the field I went into, right? But I've always enjoyed, building teams, like recruiting people, rallying them around a common cause, helping them grow professionally, and because I feel like I grow that way too. And so I know it sounds a little cliche, but I think that was part of our motivation. Was we wanted to establish a culture. Like we said, we how our team should work together, and let's try to do this in a startup.
Well, I don't think a lot of founders set out to say, well, let's build a startup and company because I want to grow a team. Though that's one of the essential components of it. I think it's a powerful already built-in passion for you in order for growth. So that's kind of interesting. Now, before you could build the team, one of the other pieces, of course, is funding too. I'm curious just on for you guys, any lessons learned or maybe one of the biggest mistakes you've seen out there when it comes to getting funding?
Well, so there's certainly, especially for the CEO on the founding team, getting funding, deciding on the funding strategy, moving through the process to get funding. It's just it's one of the biggest points of focus. It's difficult. It's an unknown for a lot of us, especially if you don't come from that field, if you're not necessarily an investment professional yourself. And so it's really easy to get lost. I think, one of the things that I, learned early on is that, it's kind of never too early to get funding. There's, but the earlier you go, the different kind of funding that you can get. So
pros and cons
right.
to the option.
Right. it's never too early. And I think I kind of, you have to pretty early on decide whether the kind of business you're building is the one that will have to scale really fast. And in that case, venture is the right for you, or whether it's going to be more of a slow building, kind of focused on profitability type business, which in that case, you probably don't need, to go the venture route.
So that helps you can make that decision. If you do go the route of VC, any thoughts on preparing your pitch, just helping figure out your story in order to be able to get the right investment?
Yeah, there are a lot of, so first of all, talk to as many other founders as possible, right? That's kind of what I've really learned. And certainly don't take the advice of just one and kind of follow some sort of, dogmatic like framework, because there isn't one way, right, to do it. But talk to as many people as you can, and then really focus on their strength, right? So on the strengths of your story, you have to decide whether it's the team and its profiles in the early goings, or whether it's the novelty of your insight, right, of the idea. This is something that nobody else could conceivably think of, or whether it's it's the market, right? Is this like incredibly fast-paced, attractive market that pretty much anyone with funding can go in and succeed in. Now the other two, I mean, the team is the one we found was easiest for us to go with in the beginning. We felt very strongly about our idea and the market, of course, but the anchor, right, is this idea, like who we are and why are we the right people to go after this opportunity. So focus on your strengths and highlight them. Is something that's really worked for us. The other thing that I think not a lot of people realize is that VCs operate in the dark, just like you, especially in a new market. And so what they do is they try to manage their risks, and they kind of have a checklist really of the kind of risks they're trying to eliminate, right, from the process. And at different stages of a venture of a company, they try to look at different kinds of risks. And so you can almost build your pitch around reassuring them around the risk. They have a risk about the team. Are these the right people to start a company or pursue this product? They have a technology risk. And what they're trying to build, is it possible to build it? Is it going to build fast? Is it going to scale? And the third thing is about the market. Are people interested in what they're building? Are people going to buy it in mass? Is there going to be an economic, business model there? And so you can kind of build your pitch around addressing these things without necessarily naming them, but you could also name them, right? And if you follow that, there's a lot of literature on this, and of course, if you talk to other founders, you'll hear it. But if you follow that, that track, pitch could go pretty well.
I love that. I mean, your recipe for success is just address the pain points that others have, and that probably translates nicely to customers and clients for your own product as well. It's like if you can address the pain points and build the story around it, it allows you to connect. Now, one of the pain points you mentioned is team, having the right team, and you've already mentioned that's a passion of yours as well. So I'm curious, what kind of common mistakes you've seen when it comes to hiring and building a team?
For startups, I find, I've personally found that potential, all around skills and cultural fit are more important than resume. And one of the common pitfalls is to hire someone first and foremost based on their credentials. So for instance, they worked for the right companies, or they have experience in the field you're going after, versus actually talking to them and see if they are, hustlers and highly motivated, whether you are on the same wavelength with them. Are they willing to learn new things? Are they opinionated, and are they going to challenge you? We wanted to work in an environment where, and again, not to sound too cliche, right? But we wanted to work in an environment that's kind of bottom up, where ideas aren't just trickled down. Startups tend to be very, focused on the founders. Like the founders came with this idea. They all the decisions goes through them, including everything, right? Every expense we have, every bill, right? and all the product decisions and all the sales decisions. And we wanted to, from day one, to have an environment where kind of everyone has a voice, and not just has a voice, but is obligated to use it, right? And speak up. And so we were really focused on that. So that's what I mean by cultural fit, is to hire people who can adapt. It's not necessarily just what they have on paper, but what they are willing to learn and how much they're willing to speak up and challenge the founders.
That is a great way to look at it, and then I'm intrigued how that rolls out internally. I imagine as you grow and build the team, things change and you have to adapt and figure out the culture. How big is the team right now? 10 people, and I know you're also distributed. Like you're in Atlanta, but everyone else is in Tel Aviv.
That's right. We are in Atlanta and in Tel Aviv, where we have our kind of engineering and R&D center, and we're actually hiring in Silicon Valley right now too. So so by the time this is live, we'll be in 3 offices, and because we're still hiring.
That's awesome. And there's unique challenges across the board when building a team, both location diverse and time difference diverse, and everyone now though is, because of COVID, having to think working remote and hybrid. Any lessons learned there that you can share of what works?
So one thing that we had going for us is, because the founders were in 2 countries from day one, we kind of had to have remote work routines from the get-go. And we were used to Zoom and Google Hangouts and video conferencing. When the pandemic hit, and we started, all of us kind of working remote, even within a city, we started adopting a few more tools and routines, right? So more heavier usage of Slack and these kind of things. I think a few things that that work for us really well, or the lessons that we've learned about making remote work, right? Is number one is you still have to stick to work hours, right? There's the tendency with remote work to assume that everyone is always available, and we had to kind of make sure people still put boundaries. But at the same time, when you are across continents, you do have to kind of have built into your schedule some flexible hours, right? Because from the US to Israel, we do want to have a conference call once in a while, right? And there's a 7-hour time difference, right? So, you sort of plan ahead a little more, you put them on the calendar, calls that maybe are in, off hours for one location, but you rotate, right? You don't necessarily put all the burden on one side. But we had to use, you make heavier use of a few of our tools, establish those, balances and routines, have more flexible hours. I'd say, honestly, we're pretty fortunate, right? In the software industry, look, we love being in the office. I think it helps brainstorming. I think it helps with team, bonding. But this is the type of company that could work remote, right? What we do. So
it's a unique challenge everyone's having to learn through and continue to grow. And I think there's no one size fits all, but I appreciate that.
That's right.
What you've already learned so far.
That's right. Yeah. And then, hey, we are, by the way, just one thing is that we, of course it's a challenge, right? To be remote and to be across continents, but we also try to get the best of it. In Israel is a mecca for AI and enterprise software talent. So we get incredible access to great engineering there and great minds on that front. At the same time, the vast majority of the target market we're going after is in the US. And so, of course, we try to leverage our network and our experience here to make sure that we're not too removed from that either, right? So that's the advantage of the multinational.
It is definitely there. And I feel like there's only going to grow the number of companies that are that kind of mindset. And it's just a global workforce, because there is no barriers due to technology. Now, one thing is building the right team. The other is being able to market and actually get the customers and clients that will pay you to have the team. Any insights you can share of tactics that have worked when you are scaling and growing a company, and where you guys are today?
So Number one is in the early days, don't turn away from any conversation and adopt a disposition of learning and getting feedback, especially in our space where we're selling to the technical staff, to data scientists, to engineers. Um, and I say we because I used to be in that shoes, right? Don't want to be sold to, right? And don't react necessarily, that positively to a sales pitch. But we are happy to engage in conversation. We love to discover new products. We love to give feedback. We love to learn about new ways to do things. And this is so adopting that mindset is really
Learning mindset.
right? The mindset of just asking for advice, of asking for feedback, of listening, of focusing on the customers, of the users, your world, their set of problems, and not about on our solution, right? That has really helped with early conversations. And frankly, it wasn't just a tactic. It was actually because we needed to learn a lot, and we still do, right? We really needed to learn a lot about what people need and want. The second thing is to not try to do too much in terms of go-to-market. So, there are very different methodologies and approaches that are needed to sell large deals to large enterprises versus to sell, to have fast-paced digital sales to small businesses. There are different channels to get to them, different expectations to the length, the sales cycle, different materials needed, different messaging.
Which one are you guys going for? Enterprise or for small business, or what's your?
We are, interestingly, we're in the mid-market today, right? Mostly,
Okay.
because you can't be too small, right? This is thing about, you have to have enough money to invest in AI and to actually deploy it at scale to be there. But we really work with kind of the leaders in the space, right? So we work mostly with AI first companies that, that have not necessarily our AI companies per se, but companies that use AI natively, that grew up in this digital age and are already avid users of software and big data, the intersection of the two. And so we're going after them, and we said initially, okay, we're going to try to get to these people where they are. But we do have to, it's not like you can't have all the answers from the get-go. This is the other thing, is that you do have to try multiple things and see what sticks, but you have to expect that you're going to invest more in the channels that work more. Whether it's trying to generate demand through content and kind of thought leadership versus cold campaigns and sales, right?
In today's environment of a very noisy digital world, everyone's doing digital because there's no in-person events or things going on. How do you get people's attention? What have you found that works to get someone's attention?
So number one is listen to them, give them a stage, right? So, acknowledge what the work that they do, and engage with the work that they do, because a lot of people, and engineers do too, and data scientists, right? They post about the work that they do and about their questions and about their things. So engage with them and participate in the community. That's one thing. And then add value to the community, right? So a lot of people start with open source projects. I mean, for us, a lot of it has been around, trying to add value through learning, right? We work with a lot of companies, we interview, and we also talk to a lot of companies we don't work with, and we gather a lot of insight and learning about the problem we're trying to solve. And so we try to share that with the world, create content that isn't, again, sales pitches and marketing. Often it's about, here's what we've learned from working with a dozen companies or more, and this is, and maybe it'll help you, right? And where you are in your use case.
Going forward into the next year, what challenges do you see you're going to need to overcome in order to keep growing in today's environment?
Yeah, I mean, so as a founder of a young startup with where you assume a lot of the functions yourself, I think one of the challenges is how to advance on a lot of fronts. It's in parallel. How to continue to build, how to continue to build the sales pipeline, and in parallel, and address the needs of the existing customers. And in parallel with a fairly small engineering and product team, how to not to get drawn into too many directions, and continue to really like rapidly advance the technology. So I think these are the main things. We are, in the company, company like us, we are in the kind of like what we call pre-scale stage, right? So a lot of it is about also preparing for scale, so that when the hyper growth stage begins, we have the right infrastructure in place for it. Whether it's we have a hiring machine where we can continue to hire without diminishing our values of what kind of team member we want to add to our team, and the experience we give them when we bring them onto the team. And at the same time, we're also scaling, the product still performs as well as it should, and all the existing customers have the right experience. So preparing for scale is another really important focus in the next year.
I appreciate the all three of those things you just said, but definitely the focus. As the founder and leader, you have to be able to lead the team, keep growing, and you have multiple things happening at the same time, and to be able to not lose traction and focus on it. It's a task to itself.
For sure.
Speaking of growing yourself and being able to grow as a leader, is there any books, audiobooks, podcasts that you've read, listened to, and have enjoyed and would recommend?
I'll give you one that I've really enjoyed, and I find it really difficult to continue to listen to which it's called Below the Line with James Bashara. He's an entrepreneur and investor in Silicon Valley. And one of the concepts, and it's not just another podcast for founders or entrepreneurs. What's really unique and I love about this new endeavor is that he's trying to talk below the line, right? He's trying to talk about the difficulties of being a founder, not just about best practices and tips on how to launch a company and how to succeed and how to raise money and all that, but actually just the tougher conversations about how hard the day-to-day is, and the highs and lows, and the personal, the mental health aspect of it. It's a very honest podcast, and I really enjoy the conversations that he's had. The reason I said that I'm having a hard time to listen to is because the conversation is less structured and it takes a long time. So you've often like an hour and a half or 2 hours of per episode. And as a father of 3 and an entrepreneur, I usually have like maybe I'm taking my kids to school, so I have 20 minutes to listen, and I like to listen in one sitting, right, to an episode. And so, but this is definitely one of my favorite recent things that are out there.
I love it. I love it. The real, I think we all crave authentic, real content, not just what's all shiny and wonderful.
And I share. I think I enjoyed those kind of conversations too, because you can only have them with other founders, right? Because it's hard to understand. You have to. You always feel like you have to put a facade out there of everything is terrific, right? We are the next big thing, and and of course that's a facade you want to have for customers, for investors, etc. And for the industry, as because you are trying to be the leader in this industry. At the same time, who are you having the honest conversations of how hard it is to start from scratch, right? And to build a team and to build a product and to convince the world that this product is useful. And there are a lot of challenges in that. And so having those
well, I appreciate that you feel it, and I've got glimpses of it over the interviews that we've done. Yotam, one last question I have for you is more looking forward, grand scheme of things. What kind of tech innovations do you predict we'll see in the near term, next year or so, and long term, 5-10 years from
now? So I think we're going to continue to see, the kind of the mobilization of things, right? That a lot of the technologies we have today are going to be more accessible on the go, and I think there'll be a lot more artificial intelligence in in devices and in accessible to anyone, anywhere. And I think that's one really big trend. In terms of spaces where we'll see, major movement, I really do hope in energy, because I think, I think that, and of course in climate response and all that, I think there'll be breakthroughs there that are not out yet. These are kind of these are two big things that I see happening.
Well, I'm both excited to see with you as well, and it's interesting to see as they come along. Well, Yotam, I really appreciate the insights and the lessons learned that you've had over these years, and it's exciting to see where you are heading next. We'll have to check back in like a year or two from now, as if anything, AI machine learning is only going to explode. So I know the need for your type of service is there. For those that want to learn more, definitely go to monalabs.io. To be able to explore their product and offering, or definitely listen to our first part of our interview where he dives deeper into their product and what they're doing. Thanks again for your time. Yotam, it's good to have you on.
Thank you for having me. Really enjoyed the conversation.
Thanks again, everyone, for joining us on UpTech Report. This is our Founder's Journey. Today's episode was sponsored by TerraLeap. If your company wants to learn how to better leverage the power of video to drive sales and marketing, head over to terraleap.io and learn about the new product customer stories. We'll see you all, guys, next time. Have you seen a company using AI, machine learning, or other technology to transform the way we live, work, and do business? Go to uptechreport.com and let us know.